Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal Diebold. We're all about XC racing, and typically it starts with 10 seconds.
But not in Iowa. In Iowa, Crystal, we start with hands-on helmets.
I like it. It's very unique.
I like to think so. It's a safety thing. Most people don't believe it, but it is. But, I'm glad to have you, Crystal. It's so much nicer having you here than our former co-host. I don't know if anybody knows, but Chris has left the podcast. I think it's just for tonight, but we'll find out, in the next episode and see if he comes back. The word is that he's a little under the weather, but I don't know if I believe it. He throws these tantrums all the time. So
that sounds about right.
Yeah, see at the races with the scoring. We have issues like this. It's all about Chris.
Poor guy. He just gets so beat
up. So Crystal, I know it was a late call. I can't remember what day it was. We called to ask you about coming on, but I appreciate you. That was just today, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, that's okay.
No, thanks for coming on. Chris obviously wasn't feeling well, and we wanted to kind of get a racer's perspective on some of the stuff that we're talking about tonight. And I thought you would be a great one since you're actually the one that kind of put me on to this, gentleman. So appreciate you coming on at late notice. And I know you got a lot of racing experience. Just tell us right quick, kind of start out. I met you and, oh boy, I don't want to age myself here, but I think you were probably 9 or 10 maybe.
Maybe, yeah. So thanks for having me on here, Andy. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we were able to work out tonight and make it happen. So I've been racing for 22 years. This year, if we were racing, it'd be 23 years. I've been racing. I started at age 5, and yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like you've watched me grow up racing with your kids, and so it's been a awesome experience throughout the years. I've been so grateful to have so many just amazing sponsors who've just supported me and supported the racing career and the passion that really drives. So really, I owe it a lot to them, but it's the time and the effort that we're putting in to support them too. So it's been a great 22 years racing, and the passion's still there. The body just not as much.
Yeah. Well, here in Iowa, we're all about family, and that's one thing I remember about you is your mom and dad was always there, out on the track, kind of helping out and everything. So it's just really cool. It's a pleasure to have you on here tonight.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, they're still loving it too. They don't get out as much as they used to with the racing. They're all into the 4-cage thing now, so they're traveling and doing some of that off-roading in the side-by-side now.
Nice. And then tonight, you want to go ahead and make your announcement then?
Absolutely. So guys, we are so excited to have everybody on tonight. We are going to have Weston Rainwater with DRW joining us live tonight.
Well, I was talking about your announcement. Didn't you tell me earlier you were going to make the announcement tonight about you were going to do the Ironman at the Heartland Challenge?
You know about died last time. That took me. So back in 2019, I'll just give you guys a quick story here because anybody who's done the 10-hour Ironman class knows it is not for the weak, right? And so back in 2019, me and Dad built a quad just specifically for it, and I trained all summer, and it still whooped my butt. 10 hours of long riding, Mom had to peel my hands off the four-wheeler and peel my clothes off because they were stuck. And it was good. I ended up fourth that year out of 16 in the Ironman class. It was a great track. Wasn't too hard, so it didn't kill me too much as far as like over and over and over. But I don't even know how many laps I did. But I definitely think that's probably one of my toughest and, best accomplishments, other than, just all the other series and stuff over the years. I think that really defines, the heart of it and or the how tough it is. It's just an extremely tough race, but it's definitely very rewarding knowing that you did something like that. But not this year. I don't be doing that one Ironman anymore. My body just doesn't quite take it like it used to. So unfortunately.
No, I hear you. Just kidding. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started on tonight's. Crystal, I kind of explained this to you a little bit earlier, but so we're doing this mini series, and it's all about, it's like, so you want to start racing, but you don't know where. And I know you've seen this 100 times, whether or not you're in a kid's class, a youth class, whether it be a mini or something, or whether you're a 25-year-old just wanting to start. It's like, where do I start? What machine do I buy? What tires do I get? And you're kind of overwhelmed, like you are with a lot of situations in life, when you just jump in, but it doesn't have to be like that. It can be, get to know some people, talk to like yourself. If you're in Missouri, Arkansas, wherever it might be, just, ask some questions. There's no silly questions, and the biggest thing I think with this mini series that we're doing is it's just like learning. It's like a cheat sheet, I know we made tons of mistakes, especially me, like when my kids were racing, you're trying to, I got to do this. And I'm as guilty as anybody, man. I used to look at, this might be aging me again, but like we didn't have the social media back then, so it was all like dirt wheels and, this has got to be the pipe because I see this big ad, and
lots of magazines in my house.
But it's a thing where we never had a cheat sheet. We never had anybody, and people do it the right way. I think, if Joe's sponsored by HMF or sponsored by, GBC, obviously that's who he's trying to tell them to go to, and that's the way he should. But it's just really kind of cutting through all the paperwork and trying to figure out, do I have to spend, $5,000 my first year to see if I like it? It's just about using what you've got, but in XC racing, we all know it's different. It's a lot different than motocross. It's a lot different than drag racing. It's a lot different than, circle track and stuff. And so there's some things that you just really do have to do. And even I get calls like this all the time, and we'll talk to Weston in a second, but it's when I get a guy calls me or gal or whoever and says, hey, I want to start XC racing with you guys. What do I need to do? And the first thing I do is talk about is it's never a machine or the tires or anything like that. It's put the protection on there, make sure that it's not going to make us faster, but it's going to make us last the whole race, and that's what we need to do. Is we lose more races by breaking down typically than winning more races because I have a certain part on, so that's kind of what the mini series is all about.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really great topic as we kind of move in throughout that mini series, because I think that is a big misconception that, people do have to go drop, $10,000 or, $5,000 to even get started. And really it's not. And, I get the same calls, and it's kind of like, what do we need to do? And just like you mentioned, the family environment, I always encourage to go talk to other people at the races, build that community connection, because they're going to be the ones who maybe has a trick like I don't know, or, other people don't know of, and it's maybe working great for them, and they can kind of build that. And Andy, I know you know this, but it's the famous old saying, you don't win it on the first lap, but you can sure lose it on the first lap. And so that's 100% right. And so, I always encourage any of the new racers, go out and try it. Just experience it. Once you do, though, you're probably hooked. So I'm just giving you a fair warning, but it's a different type of sport that you build that community, you build those relationships, those friendships, those families, and you're really going to be able to take those as lifelong friends. I can attest to that. In my years, the kids I raced with, there's some of them I'm still friends with to this day, and they've been some of my longest running friends. So the community is phenomenal.
Very cool. Well, speaking of friends, there's I don't know if you remember, but I called you here. Was that 2 years ago? I think you had done a really good job of posting something about one of your sponsors.
Yeah.
Out there, and I called you directly asking about that, and I told you good job, because I love seeing, this is a love-hate relationship. Okay.
Yeah.
And little kids are a little different because they like to look like the big boys, and gals, but I hate it when people buy a product and then stick the sticker on their machine, because it looks like that company is helping them do something, and it's not necessarily do. They just gave them a free. Well, actually, they gave them a very expensive sticker, depending on what they bought. But you did a really good job, which I think most people need to actually pay attention to some of the stuff that you post. And I remember you laying out all the parts. Mm-hmm. And we were in need of having that person to go to. Mm-hmm. And we had a great conversation with you. And you explained to me this DRW and why you should do this. And that brings us to our first guest. So let's go ahead and bring DRW on here with Weston.
Hey, everybody. I'm Weston with DRW. And it was, I guess it was about 2 years ago when Andy called me and was like, hey, so I have this fantastic friend that races MOXC, AXC, and she pointed me in your direction, looking for a possible sponsor that, deals with poly products. I believe I was coming in to fill some shoes from a previous sponsor that was no longer with the series anymore at the time. And it worked out really well, because everything that y'all were looking for parts wise seemed to be what was in my wheelhouse for what I make, which worked out great.
But, you're exactly right on how that happened. But one of the main questions I asked Crystal was about the product. It wasn't that we needed a sponsor. We wanted to send somebody to get exactly what they needed. And most importantly, is one of the questions I asked her. I don't care if it's the best. I need somebody that I can send my riders to and trust, and say, I can put my name on their product and I'll feel great about it. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, I just talked to a gentleman just today at work, just bought every single product you have for his 400EX, and I've heard nothing but good things. And it's a very competitive market, I think, that you're in. So, and like when you and I first talked, after I talked to Crystal, it was going to take a bit to get, people to understand that we're going to Texas to get this stuff. You know what I mean? And I was fortunate enough, we'll get into this a little bit earlier or later, but come down there and see you, in person. And I still can't believe the amount of product that was on the ground out there. And I'm jumping ahead here because I do want to talk about that, but let's get back to, and I'll get to that in a little bit. I tend to do this. Chris always pushes me really hard. I jump ahead sometimes, but so Crystal had done a little infomercial that I don't even know if you knew about it at the time, but when she laid all your products out there and she's talking about each one and stuff, and she did a really good job. When I called her, Weston, it was, why do you run? I didn't ask who you were. I didn't ask any of that stuff yet. I said, why do you run? Point blank, why do you run this? And she told me in details about why she ran it. She just said that it's the first time she actually got to meet you earlier, So it's been over the phone or emails and stuff that you got. Even just to build a relationship over that and run the product that you can trust in our sport, that means everything. I mean, that is everything when you can trust it, because let's be honest, your stuff, and I hope I'm not offending you when I say this, but I tell everybody this all the time, your stuff doesn't make most people faster, but it keeps people. It's like one of the absolute top 2 best insurances you can get, because your product, if your product wasn't on these machines, and that's why I tell everybody when they first start our sport, you've got to do this before you do anything else. Don't worry about your motor. Don't worry about your exhaust. Don't worry about your tires. Don't worry about, all that. Get the product on there. because it could cost you. Chris and I was just talking once. It would cost you $5,000 to get started. It could definitely cost you $5,000 if you're not running that product, and I break a couple cases,
Yes.
you know, or stuff like that. I mean, it's amazing, and that's what I really want to talk to you tonight.
Mhm.
This is really about people getting into our sport and knowing where to go, and then not only that, but people that are on products that, you know, maybe isn't up to par, you know, or just want to try something different. And I feel like every time they try your product, they're not going to go. It's like they've tried the rest. Now I'm with the best, you know? So,
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about your product before we start asking you a bunch of questions. Just let's start from the beginning. It's like, where did you get started in this, and how did it get to be at this point that you're at now?
So I've been making poly parts for, I guess it'd be about 16 years now. And I started when I was a kid, because I started on a Yamaha Warrior, which didn't have a whole lot of aftermarket following to begin with. And so as I broke things, the deal with me and my dad was, if I broke it, I had to fix it. And if we broke it, we usually put it back together stronger than it was when we broke it, because if I broke it once, I'm going to break it again. And so most of the stuff there was aftermarket for, but when it got to case savers or sprocket guards or a poly skid plate for the main chassis or a brake rotor guard, stuff like that, it just wasn't available. And so coming from the background of in my childhood of, if we didn't have it, we made it, you know, it's that mentality. And my dad had some leftover scrap material that they had used to line the beds of 18-wheeler rock trucks to let the rock slide out and not damage the beds of the trailers. And so we used some of that. We made a hand cut a case saver. And then at the time, the forums were big, and so I posted pictures of it on the forums, and guys were like, "Hey, would you make me one?" Because there was not a single option for a Warrior. There was a bullet cover, and that was the only option. It didn't protect anything. But if a chain even thought about coming off, it broke the case. And so I made a couple by hand, and then we looked into getting a CNC, and I bought a CNC router table, which has went through many iterations of upgrades since then, and taught myself CNC programming, brought all of that up to speed, and then started making case savers first. And then we moved from case savers to sprocket guards and belly skid plates and poly rotor guard. It's a similar idea to the GT Thunder that everybody's familiar with, or the Seco. But instead of it bolting to where the skid plate goes, it bolts to the back of the caliper. So all the load from the impact is a compression load, because plastic is really bad at bending. It doesn't like to bend. It's really easy to bend it. But if you put it in a compression load, it doesn't flex as bad. And so this is where poly's strong. This is where poly's weak. And so everything I design tries to put poly into a compression load. That's why if you look at some of the parts on the website, which is the best way to look at the parts, if you haven't seen them in person, there's a 3-piece system for the back end of most of the ATVs that I make parts for. And there's a rotor guard that covers your brake rotor. And then there is a sprocket guard that bolts to the side of your sprocket, just like there's 20 other options for that in different materials, you know, steel, aluminum. I think there's a couple of other poly makers that make them. And then, but my product leaves the center of the skid plate open. And so I make a swing arm plate. It's like a miniature skid plate just for the swing arm itself. And then there's other rotor guards, like the Hess one's really popular. That's a billet version, which there's nothing wrong with running a billet rotor guard. It's just aluminum does not absorb impact well. It's a very harsh hit, which is exactly why it's a horrible case saver. So the factory case savers, that if there's one on the machine, is typically like a really thin piece of steel, maybe a piece of aluminum. And then a lot of the aftermarket ones are about 1/4 inch thick aluminum, and they bolt to it. And that's most people think that that's enough, and you might get lucky if you break a chain and not hurt anything. But 9 times out of 10, when that chain hits that case saver, the aluminum version of case saver, it's like hitting a punch with a hammer. And whatever it's attached to, all of that shock force goes through. And so typically what it's attached to is the engine case. And those bolt holes on most engine cases are not the strongest part of that case. So those aluminum case savers are really known for breaking mounts off or breaking the edges of the case off or breaking holes in the motor, where I didn't like that. And so I made a poly one, which there's all other poly options. There's UPP and Moose and Glan and a couple of other options out there, I'm sure. And they all work in different ways. Like some of them are more budget friendly. Some of them are meant to be 2-piece systems. But I got tired of that. I wanted to see one that worked specifically as a case saver. You put it on, you can't mess it up. And so we made a case saver that had a nice gentle ramp at the top. So when the chain whipped through, it didn't hit real hard. And then it's solid poly. So there's nothing, it's kind of like a built-in shock absorber. And then there is a guide that goes between the front sprocket and the swing arm, which does make fitment on some models a pain. I will admit that. But that guide sits almost touching against the front sprocket, so that when the chain comes loose, there's nothing keeping it from pulling off the bottom of the front sprocket. Sometimes it'll wad up. That's real common. It'll double up around the front sprocket and it'll break everything there. But that guide will sit against that sprocket, and it will pull the chain off the sprocket and keep it ejecting out its normal path. And so the sprocket pulls all the chain off of it, pulls the chain through, just ejects it out there on the ground behind you, and it's dying away. So doing it that way, you don't have to worry about the chain balling up, and you don't have to worry about having another option for where the chain could go. Because if it's a poly case saver, usually they're pretty good about the initial hit and the original guiding out. But if the chain balls up around the front sprocket, it doesn't matter. You can only fit so much stuff in the same place. So having a guide that keeps the chain off the front sprocket in the case that it's been broke, that's a huge benefit. And then some models, you have to trim the slider. It's on the swing arm up front. That's a wear item. I make some of those that are made so you don't have to trim them. So, because some people don't like trimming the factory one. Some people rather just buy 2 pieces bolted on and not have to touch anything. It just fits. That's it. And then I'm not a big stickler. If you run one part, you have to run all of my parts. This sport is a real big personal preference. Like, I really like what I run. I run what I make. What's on the website is what I run. That's just it. I don't make something that I don't use. If I'm not going to use it, or I don't see a purpose for it, I don't make it, because I don't want to make stuff that's not helpful. It's the same thing with the pricing. Like, I try not to price myself out of what it's worth. I know that pricing, the economy's horrible. Everybody's blaming inflation. Prices can go up real easy. And I try really hard to price it at what it's worth, and not price it at, it's going to last you for 20 years, so I'm going to make it 10 times more expensive. No, it's a skid plate. It works. I'm going to sell it for a skid plate that works. So that's my big thing. Most of my parts come with a lifetime warranty. So if you tear it up, I want to know how you did it, first off, because that's probably impressive.
It's true.
It is. I've had, so racing cross country like we do, you can wear through stuff like a rotor guard or a sprocket guard, and I'll replace them. That's fine. Yeah. I don't mind. It typically, like in the rocks of Arkansas, I was in Oklahoma for Riverfront Grand Prix this year, or I guess it'd be last year now. And there were some AXC guys up there running my parts, and some of them had 3 years of racing on the rotor guards, and it had wore the rotor guard out. Like the literal rocks had wore the rotor guard from being about this thick to being about this thick. And they're like, "Oh, but the rotor ain't hit nothing. We're fine." And I was like, I probably need to replace that for you, buddy. He's like, no, I want to buy another one. Don't worry about it. Like, okay, if you're sure. But all of the parts that I make are poly. I know that they're not going to last forever. They're designed to do their job forever. But if there's ever a need to replace them, I don't mind. They're not designed to wear out, and so I don't feel like you should have to buy the same product twice to do the same job. And I'm okay with that.
Not to interrupt you real quick, but I'm having a hard time grasping on something you're saying. So I'm going to ask Crystal's opinion here real quick. Crystal, did you hear what he said about that lifetime warranty?
Yeah. And so that was one of the things when I started talking to Weston and I first met him, we were talking about his products and what type of, durability these products have. And, I can 100% attest to racing it on an A open class for the last couple of years. and all of his products, I run all of his products on my 2014 TRX 450 ER, and they're phenomenal. I haven't worn any of them out. I mean, they hold up, and and that's what we look for. Like you said, is as a racers, we want to see those quality products, because we're taking our money and investing it in. And so when we look at that as, our quality products and being able to just 100% attest that it's the rock solid. I mean, the durability of them is just something I haven't seen before. Cause like you said, those rotor guards, I've had other poly rotor guards. I'm going to tell you, I've ate them up a whole lot faster. I mean, after a couple races, and I've been running his same one for the last couple of years. And so I think that's a huge testament to, how well he is building these products.
Have you ever heard, as a racer though, have you ever heard a company, especially XC racing? I feel like I'm not knocking any of the other sports like circle track or motocross or, anything like that. But I feel like XC racing tests every single part there is. And have you ever heard of a company publicly saying, I back everything with lifetime warranties? I've never heard that.
I was going to say, I haven't heard any. I know that All Balls does some of the stuff with their bearings, but those aren't lifetime warranties. I think they're only like a couple years. Someone might have to correct me. I'm not exactly sure. But I was going to say, I think that's a huge just accomplishment, is to be able to be, that certain on your guys' products. And like I said, I can 100% attest to it, because they've worked and held up great for me and what I put them through.
Another thing about the warranty, coming from my point of view, is if I can't wear it out, I can't improve it. And if I have people that are racing all across the country, in Iowa and Texas and Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Missouri, Michigan, anywhere that people are racing, they're all on different terrain with different machines, pushing them through different tracks than what I've seen. And if they can wear something out or break it or show me a fault in the design, then I can take that, and I can, being totally integrated to where I am the guy who goes and gets the material, to I'm the guy that goes to the post office. Everything in between goes through me. So if something's not right, then I can take that information and I can fix it. Now, typically, if one person has a fluke thing out of 10,000 parts that are out there, I don't typically change the design off of one thing. But if it's 2 or 3, and I need to know the information, if they break stuff and they don't tell me, then I can't help it. I can't help but make the same part, because I've never seen the fault before. But I also like to have a couple of failures so that I know that I'm still have places to grow. And that's something that XC has taught me in the last 2.5 years, because I've started racing the Texas Cross Country Series TX4 locally for me. Most of the races are about 4 hours from the house. And so I ran all of this season, and I ran half of last season. And between those 2 seasons, I broke a lot of stuff that I didn't think could break. Not necessarily the poly parts, but we found the weaknesses in frames. We found the weaknesses in linkages. We found the weaknesses in tires. We found structural problems that we didn't know were a problem. We've been running the same machines and the same chassis for 10 plus years. And then we go out there in XC race and we find new weak links that was new to us. And so we've learned a lot in running the cross country series. And I understood before how expensive racing can be. And now that I have done it, and we ran last year, there was 5 of us that raced out of the shop. And then now there's 3 going into this season. Me, my dad, and my niece, and all 3 of us are going to be racing the full season. And so I understand that it's expensive. And, if you have a skid plate or a sprocket guard or a rotor guard that you have to replace every 3rd race, that's going to get expensive, especially if you're running 10, 12 races a year. Because for my bunch, it's already like $700 a weekend if we don't break anything to go race for 3 people, because we're going to do 4 hours there, camping overnight, gas for the generator, enough gas to run through 45 minutes of practice and an hour of race if we run all of practice. And then we've still got the tank and a half of diesel to get there and a tank and a half to get back. So I fully understand it. It's not cheap to go racing. And my my parts are meant to save you headache and not have to replace stuff or break stuff as often. That's what the product's for. And so if it's not holding up to its job, I need to know it. And running cross country has taught me a lot of stuff. And I don't just make parts for the 450. I don't just make parts for the Honda or the Yamaha. I pretty much cover just about all the models. I cover the XC KTMs. I haven't gotten my hands on SC, which is the motocross version. I need one of those to do a little bit of tweaking on the motor design. So shout out if anybody's around Texas that has one, I'd love to borrow it for a day or two. And then, but I have everything for the YFZ, the 700 Raptor, 660 Raptor, 350 Raptor, 250, 125, the Warrior, the Banshee, the Blaster, I've got an LT 500 Quadzilla to work with, but I haven't finished with that yet. That's been a fun one to figure out. Those were built in a different time. Okay. So, but I've got all the Suzuki stuff for the LTR, the Z400s, the Articat DVX 400 sibling of the Z400, the Kawasaki 450s. I've got the case savers for those. I don't have the whole product line. I need to revisit that. I've had those were the way they were built made things difficult to design at the time, and I couldn't wrap my brain around it. And I need to revisit that. But I make parts for just about every ATV that's every sport ATV out there. And if I don't make it, and you want to bring it to me to make it, then I'll be more than happy to work with it. The problem with me is that I'm in East Texas and we're not really known for sport quads. We're normally known for sinking a 4-wheel drive in a mud hole. And so I don't have access to all of them. But when I do get access to them, I do try and knock out all the parts for them. And I've had guys from Missouri bring me 4-wheelers before to make parts for. I believe one of the 125s that was racing MOXC last year actually brought the whole machine down to me for a week for me to make parts for because I didn't make them for it. I went and bought machines to make parts for. I have, in shameless shout out, if you bring me a 4-wheeler that I don't make parts for, whatever I make, you get the first one free. There's no charge to it. So if I don't make your case saver for a KTM 450 XC or 450 SC, I'm sorry, and you bring it to me, I'll make you the case saver and I'll fully outfit it and make sure everything fits, and you get the whole setup for free. Because that will give me the product line that I have all the measurements for. And then that gives you all I think it's almost $600 in parts now that you don't have to pay for. And I just got to borrow the machine for a week. I don't need it to run. You take the key with you.
You make anything for the Honda 90s?
No, I don't. And I need to. But I haven't had my hands on one. I see them.
I know Chris is working on a Honda 90. It's a pink one. It's got some lace on it and stuff, and that Chris is going to start racing. So maybe that's something he can bring down to you. We'll have to talk to him about that. I don't know if he can take all of his little horn and stuff off of it, so you got more room, but we'll have to talk to Chris about that. But the Honda 90 thing's getting to be a huge deal. I just didn't know. I know you mentioned a couple youth ones there, so I just want to ask you on that.
I haven't gotten into the 90s, and I need to. The same way with the Can-Am 110s, because those are getting to be real popular. The Can-Am DS90 and 110, those are really popular in our local series. I need to get my hands on one of each of those to work with. Just hasn't happened. I would say right now I'm slow, but our season ended on the 19th of December, and in our first round for next year is the 25th of this month. So I don't really have an off season during the winter. And then this midsummer, when we take a break for it being too hot to race in, everybody's ordering parts for the rest of the world. It's not in the middle of the sun. So I don't really get a break. So, but I do need to work on those because since we've been racing, I have saw how big the kids market is and how big, or not really the market, but the classes are.
Yes.
And I know a lot of the parents out there there's a lot of parents out there with kids that want to race that are more than happy to do this stuff, but they don't know what they're doing. They don't know, they didn't grow up into sports, so they don't know what they need. And I really do need to get involved in that more because I have really kind of neglected the kids side because I've always thought of it before I started racing, I thought of it as, they're on the bike for maybe 2 years, probably riding around the yard most of the time. But I never thought about how hard those kids actually race out there. It's quite impressive to watch 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds. I mean, just fly.
Mm-hmm. And Weston, I really like some of the stuff you were talking about where, offering to make it better. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are genuine in saying that, but I haven't personally, as a racer, ever experienced working one-on-one with a company that really wants to try and improve an item, or if it was faulty for any reason, really try and do that. So I definitely commend you on that, because always seeking to better your products. I think that's extremely important. I think that also is why you have such a great reputation, because your products are a true representation of how you run your business. And so, when we look at those different products and stuff you were naming with the different types of machines, one thing we always do, because we got all our friends into racing and just riding, even first thing they did, they all bought case savers. They went to your website and they all bought case savers so they didn't crack the motor on their machine. And, what do you feel like is probably the most important protective piece that you guys make?
In general, just overlapping in general, case saver. That is the most important thing, because the only things that are being made now are 700 Raptor and the YFZ 450R. And I have seen bills of people that have broke cases and had them replaced, and the bill typically comes back around $2,300 just for having cases. No new crankshaft, no new timing chain, no new piston, no port work, no actually building a motor, just replacing what's broke. It's typically $2,200, and a $50 or a $60 part to fix that, and so or prevent that from happening. So a case saver is by far my biggest thing. The second thing that I would recommend is kind of a tie between the belly skid plate and some sort of rear protection, because the stock stuff in the back, especially on the new ones, it's a plastic skid plate and it does not live very long. You might get 1, maybe 2 races out of it, and the thing just grenades, goes to pieces. So, and then the chassis skid plate, if you come down hard on a rock, there's not really a whole lot between the bottom of that motor case and a rock or a stump or whatever else gets dug out of the trail. And that's not good. I have broke linkages by hitting rocks in the trail. And if I had hit anything other than a linkage on it, it would have broke that too. I've got the skid plates I make are 1/2-inch poly, like the old school thick plastic cutting boards we all probably had growing up, or our mama had, one of the two. I have seen gouges that were almost halfway through, and that's how thick the skid plates are. So imagine if that hit something other than slick plastic. It's not pretty. So I start with a case saver, and then I would go with a belly skid plate or something in the back first off, because if you've been to brake rotor, you're not going to go very far very fast. If you hit something hard enough on the rear sprocket, you can break a chain, and then you're still not going anywhere. Your motor's protected if you have a case saver, but you're still not going to go anywhere because you have no drive chain. We have broke sprockets inside sprocket guards before racing. So it's the best option is either a skid plate or a sprocket guard situation like what I make. But either way, you need to have something stronger than stock, because if it can break inside of one of mine, I know it'll break on a stock one. They're just not adequate for how hard we push these machines. Those are the easy stuff. If you're just getting into it, if you're wanting something that can protect what you already have, that's a big thing. As a racer, progressing through the levels that I am, which I run the Vintage Expert class, which the only class that's faster than ours in Texas is the pro class. We races in the evening because we run 2 adult classes, an AM adult and a PM adult. And then our line is first row in the AM, and then pro is first row in the PM. And we're typically trading blows on who has the fastest lap. And so we're running the same pace as pro class. And we tear up just as much as they do. And the difference being is we have to be protected. Like, that's it. There's no way around it. The only good part about running in my class in the morning is the track's not typically tore up as bad. But even by the end of our race, I'm banging rocks. I'm banging off of the rotor guards. I'm banging off sprocket guards. My skid plate has got some wear. I actually pulled a bolt out of the frame last race. I hung a tree root with the bottom of the belly skid, and it just ripped the bolt out. Like, so
That's very intense.
I didn't know that was a thing, but evidently that is. So that I got to put a longer bolt with a nut on it now. So I didn't know that was possible. So, but if there wouldn't have been a skid plate there, I don't know what it would have hit, because the lowest thing on my motor is a drain plug. And if it had ripped the drain plug off, there's a $6,000 motor for me, because I run a built motor. That's $6,000 being oil starved. That's bad. So, but it's, I'm really big on suspension and ergonomics outside of the normal protection stuff getting started. I'm really big on ride something that you're comfortable with. I really like the Warrior because that's what I grew up on. Now my stature and frame does not fit a Warrior because I'm 6'4", and there's nothing a Warrior should fit me. But I have adjusted ergonomics to make that work, and I'm really big on being comfortable there. And for new riders that are hopefully listening to this, getting ideas for what they're going to do not ride over your head. If you're going to go out there and race the first time, go out there and just set the goal of finishing. You can worry about going faster next time, but and first lap, just finish the first lap. That's all you need to do. You can start riding harder after you know what you're doing on the first lap, because there's so many times I see it that people go out there and they crash out on the first lap, or they hit a tree, or they break something because they were pushing too hard and they hit something they didn't see. That's where the protection stuff can save you, but it's also putting yourself in a situation as a rider that you're pushing the envelope more than you probably need to with parts. So my advice to riders. Go ahead.
What was that you said about the first lap earlier, Crystal?
You can't win it on the first lap, but you sure can lose it. And you're 100% right, Weston. I mean, and that's where it really comes down to safety at that point. And, we see a lot of people that are going out for the first race. They're so excited, which, I mean, we're kudos to them. We're super excited for them. Biggest thing, especially if you're at a really rough track, man, just be safe out there. Get through your first lap, like Weston said, because it is not worth us life-flighting. You don't want to pay that life flight. You don't want to pay that hospital bill. Just go out there, do a nice ride, because riding with your friends, and this is a big thing that I stress to, our friends and our riding group here, when they kind of started getting into it, is, guys, racing is a whole lot different than riding with your friends. And it's, the safety wise, what you're looking at in the track, how you're riding, your riding is different. So just, please be mindful of that for any of them, not to scare anybody. It's a great time, but it's a lot different than just riding in the woods with your buddies.
Right. And then you spend, as a more advanced level, like I've been riding ATV since I was 8, I think I got 21 years, 29, 21, 22, 21 or so years of ride time. And I've been on a sport quad the whole time. And so I've been sand dune riding. I've been riding in the mountains. I've been riding in the woods, motocross track. I have actually more experience before I started racing cross country in the motocross world than I did in cross country. And because that was my background, was motocross. And so stepping into cross country, I kind of expected to know what I was getting into, but I didn't really. The level that we destroy things is a total different tier. Like it's up there.
It's so much more expensive.
You're like, oh, but we're only running an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45. No.
2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. So
getting to the checker flag is an accomplishment sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you come through that timing and scoring, you look up at that timer and you're like, I got to do one more. No.
You can do, and then you got to talk yourself into that last lap.
Yeah. I'm always the one that goes through the timing and scoring and sees the clock and starts seeing what my lap times are. You know, like, okay, I'm running about like a 9-minute lap or a 19-minute lap, depending on how long the track is. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, so if I sandbag about 30 seconds, I don't have to do another one.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one who thinks that, though, Weston. Thank you for saying that, because I completely understand.
If there's no one to battle, then why am I pushing that hard?
Yeah.
Because I am not in perfect shape. I'm working on it, but I am not in good enough shape to be like, yeah, let's go for another lap. No. Get me off this thing. I want to die.
So Weston,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. So one thing I wanted to ask you about is when we were down there at your facility, I was blown away at the product that was on the ground. That was wasted material. I mean, it almost broke my heart that there was that much stuff there. And talking to you down there, what I realized is that's the product that you expect to kind of lose, I guess, by testing and developing all this stuff. And leading into that, that's what I want to ask you is, so I know in every industry you're going to get this, okay? It seems to me that maybe just because I'm in this sport lately a little more than the rest of them, I guess. I pay attention to it more, but I see stuff getting copied all the time, okay? And I don't want to mention any names or anything like that, but what I see there is what that I don't think most people realize what that costs you. And I did a 3-episode deal with Sean Hess on this as well. And what people don't understand, or maybe you can tell us, is it's the time away from your family. You know, it's the time of material that you're using, the time getting the material, you know, all that kind of stuff that they don't see that goes into developing it. You've told us that you develop and design all of your products, and you're not afraid to go out and do the extra one. So I think if I remember right, Crystal had told me at one point that you had a Suzuki, didn't you, that some people didn't make a lot of product for or something? Or was that a Suzuki you had?
Yeah, the Z400 that you raced.
But I mean, there's a reason people don't make that stuff. No offense to that product, but you are the one that, like Crystal mentioned earlier, making stuff for that and not afraid to go out and try that. So we know that if you're selling a piece of, I'm going to say plastic, but you know what I'm talking about, that's 6 inches long, you're going through 12 feet of that minimum probably just to design that one piece. You know what I mean? And then I'm hearing you talk about stuff like putting lifetime warranties and stuff on that. So what does that do to you you've mentioned you're a one-person shop here, to go through and do all that and then see somebody basically just kind of like copy your product?
But it's happened a couple of times. I haven't had too many blatant copies. I've had a couple. They usually come out of China, to be honest. There's a couple U.S. companies that have gotten really similar with the way I build things, but not necessarily like just carbon copy printed it without my logo in it. But it hurts some. Like, okay, for instance, this is a really good one because this has killed the product for me. The Yamaha Warrior doesn't come with an oil cooler. Okay, most quads don't, but the Warrior being air cooled, it has to have more than just air to cool the cylinder in the head when you build a motor. They just need more cooling than that. They'll run way too hot. So I developed a oil filter adapter. It was a cover that you bolted on where the oil filter goes, and it gave you an oil line out and return so you could run an oil cooler. And I didn't make the whole kit. I just made the cover because there's 1,000 different ways you can mount an oil cooler on one. You can run hard lines, soft lines, braided lines, rubber lines. You could run a transmission cooler. You could run fancy AN fitting coolers. You can weld on mounts. You can clamp on mounts. I didn't want to take the job of setting what the whole kit was. And so I just made the cap that allowed customers to build their own, which is very common in the Warrior community for people to modify their things like that. It's kind of the Warrior community's bread and butter. They'll take something that's not quite right and they'll make it work. But China came along and copied it to the point where they actually used my pictures in the ad. Like the pictures that I had on the website are the pictures that are listed on on Amazon and eBay. If you look up a oil cooler kit or adapter on Amazon and eBay, that's what pops up. Those pictures are my pictures. There's actually one of the pictures in the ad of it sitting on my desk with the computer keyboard behind it and the computer screen lighting it up on the counter, and of it, like the day I brought it home for prototyping. And I took a really pretty picture of it before I put it on for testing, and that's in their ad. And granted, I sold it with fittings and oil in the O-rings and everything else, but I didn't post all the pictures of all the parts that came in it. And I sold it for $100, which was pretty fair because I think I ended up with like $78 in cost in it between running U.S. Parker fittings and Byton O-rings and having it thread lockered and having the fittings put in the cover with proper thread lock. They're actually, it was actually using Loctite's pipe sealant. And so I hand assembled every one of them. And I went from selling about 1 or 2 a week, which is not crazy, but it's a warrior. I don't expect to sell a ton of them, to selling one every 6 months. And so I realized that something wasn't right. And so I went to looking and saw that they were on Amazon and stuff, and they were selling them for $30. But they were selling just the cover, which it did the Google search, which saw all the stuff that was my description in like the SEO for the people that run websites and stuff. The SEO is what's underneath the main title link on Google. And it had my description copy and pasted in the SEO. But when you click the ad, it didn't have any of the other stuff listed. So everything that wasn't in the picture, they didn't copy. And so then I started getting people calling me with that product that came from China, that the OEM O-ring wouldn't fit because the O-ring was a little different because for the oil passage to clear, it had to be a different size. They were complaining that the fittings weren't there, that it leaked and stuff, and the machining wasn't the same as the picture. And I had to start asking them where they ordered it from, because I'm not on Amazon and I'm not on eBay anymore. I used to be on eBay, but the fees got to the point where either I was going to have to cost the customer more to be on eBay, or I was going to be off of eBay. And so now I'm solely on the website to try and keep the cost down, which is both less headache for me and it's cheaper for the customer. So it's a win-win on that one. But people were starting to call me about it, and it just got to the point where I think I had like 8 or 9 left on the shelf when it started. And it probably took me 3 years to go through those last 8 or 9. And so when I got done with it, it was, okay, do I spend $4,000 reinvesting in stocking an item that I'm not going to sell for 10 years? Is it worth it or not? And so I actually ordered one of the China knockoffs, I'm not going to lie. And the machining is fine, but the parts that need to go with it are what I had to go with it. So you can still use the Chinese part, but you have to get all of the pieces that I had supplied with my kit to make it work. And it just didn't make sense to me, because I couldn't buy them from China and put the parts with them and sell them at the same price. And I couldn't buy them from my supplier and set on them for 10 years because I couldn't do billet aluminum in-house at the moment. So it's had to be outsourced. I can design it, but I can't cut it type thing. And so not at the quality that it should be. And so I had to discontinue that part. So you can't even see that I sold that part anymore. It's not on my website. It's not anywhere you can find it. I had to kill it because it was copied. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just hate to see that stuff. I know you guys work so hard, and it's people like yourself that allows Crystal and all these other racers to do what we do and save money when it could get out of hand and stuff. So that's kind of a passion of mine, is bringing that up anytime I can to get people to realize that, like I said, guys like yourself, that's one reason we reached out to you after talking to Crystal, is that your heart and your passion is into it. You do everything yourself. When we were down there, I was expecting to see this huge, I'm not going to lie to you, I thought I was going to see this huge big Morton building and, the fire, what do you call it? The fountains out front and stuff, DRW Performance. No. And I mean, it's like a blue collar work spot. I mean, you literally, I loved it. I really did. Some people might say, well, that's not as what. I loved it because that's showing, that's you in there working, not worrying about all the rest of the stuff. It was so detailed. Remember where we did the videos from where you store all your stuff and everything. And I thought it was really cool, man. So I can't even imagine, only people see the finished product, but what took it to get to there is absolutely amazing. And you guys deserve all the credit in the world. We actually have another guest getting ready to come on. That's kind of in the same boat. If you got a little bit, you want to stick around just for a minute, I'd like to introduce you. Have you ever met Steve?
I don't think I have. I've seen a lot of his product though.
Well, let's see if we can't get our, we have a, what do you call that technical guy that's supposed to know everything in the backside? I won't use any names. We just call him Chris, but sometimes he can make things happen. Look at that. It's like magic. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Steve, you get, sometimes
That must be Chris.
That's Chris. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
So, Steve, we were just talking with Weston. We got Crystal on here. Weston with DRW Products. I know you've heard us talk about them at the Heartland and stuff like that. But I wanted to spend just a few minutes with you guys together here because we were first talking about DRW Performance and all the protection stuff that he builds, and stuff for the ATVs. Now, really quick, Weston, you're not into any side-by-sides yet, are you?
No, and I have been asked about it before, and I have two answers for that. One, it's hard for me to build product for machines that I'm not involved in, so I don't know their weaknesses. And also, I'm not passionate about it, so I know that I won't put 110% into it. So I have a hard time committing to a market that I'm not really passionate about because I'm not a side-by-side guy. I've owned two of them, sold both of them. It's just not my bread and butter. I know some people love it, and I have nothing against them. It's just I'm not in the market because it's not what I'm passionate about.
I know exactly what you're saying. It's why we don't do our bikes. There's people that love bikes and do them, and then we let them do them. Our passion's four wheels. So, Steve, I don't know if you heard what he just said, but he was kind of breaking up there a little bit. He said he's not passionate about the side-by-sides. So I think what he was trying to say is, can you take me to King of the Hammer, Steve, and I'll become passionate about it?
He will very quickly.
Absolutely.
I can feel my kidneys hurting already.
Hey, Weston, you got to age a little bit more. And they say with age comes a cage. And that's kind of where I'm at anymore. It's a lot easier to kind of sit back and just kind of get it in the side-by-side than sit there and make my back hurt, my neck hurt, my arms hurt.
Holders. I mean,
so far, the only cage I have had to grow into was having a crib. I'm happy to have two little girls now, and I, as far as I am concerned, that's the only cage I currently need.
Well, those will get more expensive too. Don't worry.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. I am not worried a bit about how expensive they're going to be at all. That has been proven.
So the nice part about this is, I truly feel like, and if anybody's ever been around me at the races when we talk about this stuff, like I told you, Steve, when an ATV guy comes in and says, "Hey, what do I get?" I'm sorry, Steve, I meant Weston, it's the protection, that you're building and stuff out there. It's so important. The side-by-sides, the ATVs, I'm not going to lie, when there were some products out in the very beginning, I never understood them. And I wasn't a good advocate for the tire spines, because when those first products started coming out, I'm talking 10 years ago or whatever, it's like, God darn, these things are so expensive, they just seem like it. And we're just lucky here in Iowa because we don't have the sharp rocks and, we have the good never ending black dirt,
Yeah, you do.
Right.
So sometimes, you think you don't need it. Well, then I think it's through our AXCC years. Is it because I never traveled with GNCC? I've never had that opportunity, to be like out on the road, I guess you would, so to speak. And when we started the AXCC, I understood the Weston side of things with the DRW parts. Didn't really understand how important the tire spines was, Steve, until one race. You remember that race?
Well, Loretta Lynn's.
Loretta Lynn's. I realized, and that's truly, I've seen it before, don't get me wrong. But I've seen, and if I remember right, I think the score was something like 30 some cars to 1. And I don't think your product had even came out of the tire yet. It was getting cut up because it was so bad. But another product had lost like 30. Some of them had lost it out on the track, But that's where it hit me, Steve. And that's why I introduced like both Weston's products and Steve's products with Tire Spine and DRW as insurance, because I see these guys go around the whole country. I mean, when we were doing the AXCC thing and traveling the country, like Loretta's or Texas or even Oklahoma is one of the worst as far as roughness, on the rocks and stuff. You're opening yourself up to so many more things than we ever seen. I put 10 years worth of tires, life, took like 10 years of my tire life out just by doing 2 years of AXCC, so here it lasts forever. But so it's kind of neat having you two on here under this episode of protection, for the machines. And we haven't talked much about side-by-sides during this, but Steve, your product, I keep starting to say this and I get away from, but people travel all the way across the country and they say, well, I don't need those, but they get, I've known people drive 16, 20 hours, whether it be to South Carolina, to Florida, and I'm watching them on the live scoring and they don't come through the first lap. It's like, what's going on? Oh, he had a flat, destroyed that. He tore up the rim trying to get back. He's done. It's like, that's 40 hours of driving. And all of a sudden, when you realize that insurance plan of having tire spines in there, again, I tell them like Weston's products, and I hope I'm not offending either one of you, but it doesn't make you faster, but makes you complete the race and have stuff to make sure that, you can continue going. Nothing's stopping you. And I know you and I had talked a little bit about some times that you actually showed that they were making you faster on the short course. I think it was.
Correct.
You had told me, but tell us a little bit about your product. I want Weston to be able to hear it, because I don't know if anybody's ever got tire spines in a Warrior. So I'm trying to push this to be the first. When he comes up for the Heartland, he can have tire spines in there. So sell me your tire spines right now, Steve.
So I'll take a quick step backwards, and you hit a couple points that are huge for us. So Tire Spine really started, like officially begot their LLC back in Dwight and Terry days in 2016. That's also at the same time frame that the military, the U.S. Army, tested all the run flat products that existed on the market, and even stuff that didn't exist on the market. Carbon fiber, halo, ring tires, stuff like that. And unfortunately, the report's classified, so it's not like I can just throw it out there. But we surpassed all of the products, period. No questions asked. And the reason that is because Dwight and Terry had worked with them on other products, and they came to Dwight and Terry and said, if you could make this all one solid piece, that's what we're looking for. And it worked phenomenally. So what sets us different from the other products that exist out on the market for run flats is that our run flat product, it's a foam insert. And everybody's thinking, oh, foam. Yeah, no, this isn't what you scrounge out of the back of the dumpster behind Walmart. This is highly expensive foam, and that's where you see the price. I wish I was sitting here making it rain, but I don't even have a vent on the hole in my ceiling, guys. I mean, I'm telling you, like, the material is expensive. So I want to clear that up. It's expensive, and and Weston can talk about this. I mean, the material itself is, no matter what, is expensive, unless you're in China, So, but it's a solid, lightweight foam that's really durable, and we take that and we cut it to your tire size, whether that be an ATV and on a Yamaha Warrior, or a side-by-side, a Maverick R running 35-inch tires at King of the Hammers. We're even, and you talked about it too, we've done it in Pro 4 trucks at Champ Off-Road. We are basically dabbling from little to massive, in this, but that solid foam ring that we're putting inside your tires has some very big advantages, and the fact that if you gouge your sidewall, multi-celled products can start coming out. And that's exactly what you're talking about, Andy. And that's kind of the downfall. And the other part to it too is the heat and friction being generated in between each and one of those. So that also adds to wear and tear and goes back to cost. You're going to be wearing them out faster. Well, depending on what the product is, you might be replacing 1 or 2 every race. That's not uncommon and unheard of. I know a lot of people are shocked to hear this, and I know you were too, Andy, on guys that have been running sport quads. It's not uncommon whatsoever to see the same set of 4 spines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 fronts, 2 rears, 3 and 4 seasons old. Years.
Awesome.
I mean, full seasons. I was just at GNCC Ironman in October and had a guy come up that got his spine from Dwight 5 years ago. So we go the distance. I mean, it unfortunately the price is the price, but we get the price, we get the distance out of them. Actually, Matt Horton, I just saw commented 3 Vegas Torinos on one set. And I think off the top of my head, Vegas Torino is 400 miles. So
it's close to that. It's a little over 400, but it's a little under 5. I think they call it a 500 race. Yeah. So I mean, those stories are out there, but just like Weston was talking about with the K-Savers and stuff, the right storm, anything can be broken, right? And our product's no different. Heat and friction will kill anything at the end of the day. If you're running a desert race and it's 100 degrees out, or the Heartland, I mean, at 230 degrees internal temperature, it'll start coming apart. And that's a thing. It does happen. Those things do happen, and majority of the time they don't, but it's nothing's invincible, nothing's unbreakable. So while our product goes really, really far and long distances and a long time, we're kind of our own worst enemy there, but it's also not unbreakable either, just like Weston was saying with his, so it does happen. But it's one of those things, if you're on year 3 and you grenade one or it comes apart or whatever, you got your distance out of it, you got your mileage out of it. And I tell everybody it's an insurance policy. No tire is invincible. None of them, 0. There's some huge claims out there from different tire manufacturers and stuff, but not a single one of them is invincible. And that's just where we step in to help with that insurance policy to get you to the podium. Whatever we need to do to try to keep you up. And most of the time, guys don't even know they have the flat. That's the other side effect to it too. Especially on the side-by-sides, it's not like we have tire pressure sensors that we know when our tire pressure goes to 0, like our vehicles do nowadays. That's part of the side effect of it too, is you could have been on that flat for 100 miles and not realized it until once it's starting to go away at 200 plus degrees, so that's what Tire Spine is. And we are in full swing for King of the Hammers right now. I was literally just in the truck at the start of this, dropping off 19 tires to a team up in Bloomington, Illinois. We're getting ready to go out there. I'm almost out. I think I have 8 left, just because of available material, and we're taking 230 spines out there to do for King of the Hammers. So it is full on go mode right now. We roll out in about 20 days for California. So
that's awesome. Hey, good luck out there, Steve. I had one question just kind of for all these people who's watching on, is just to elaborate a little further, because I know we were previously talking about new racers coming in and maybe new people to your guys' product. You talked a little bit about the life of it. Can you elaborate a little bit further into the aspect for everybody of, let's say that tire does wear out. Can you move them into another set of tires if they're still viable?
Yeah. So I'll cover that in just a second. I do want to take a step back on the install. No matter what system you choose or decide to go with, or whatever racer persuades you to go with, every single one of them requires labor. And some of them, majority of them, require special tools, whether that be an air manifold, special spreaders, that type of stuff. that's the other huge thing about the tire spine, is you just need basic tire spoons, that and the overarching concept is you corkscrew the foam insert down into your tire. So I did want to touch on that real quick. But at the end of the day, no matter what, it's labor. And a lot of people nowadays do not like that word, and I totally understand. We're one of the few that will do installs for you. If you don't want to mess with it, we'll do it for you. You know, we've been to the Iowa races. We go to the Heartland. Hey, I want protection. Can you just install it for me? Absolutely. Well, no problem. You know, you can go to our YouTube and see that they can install a sport quad spine in 30 seconds. They literally had a competition on Facebook, and it's if you're that quick with it, yeah, I mean, it's absolutely possible. But don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, the right tools make every job easier, right? You know. So, but going back to your question, Crystal, is, yeah, I mean, the spine itself, yeah, you can get multiple years of use out of it. You might be Walker Fowler and get one race out of it. You know, like I said, nothing's invincible, right? Like you get it hot enough, it'll do what it's going to do, right? But yeah, so you know, you get your time out of it. But let's just say you're just starting out, right? You made the investment, you got the insurance policy, you've got them installed. Okay, I just cut a sidewall, or I just went the whole season without a flat, and I wore the tread off these tires. So yes, you can absolutely take that spine to a brand new tire at the end of the season, mid-season, whenever, and keep on going with it. So the easiest way that we tell everybody to do it, and racers know this, you know, because if you junk a tire at a race or you wear the tread out of it, it's no good anymore. You can take a simple utility knife with a fresh blade on it and just cut your sidewall out and just push the spine out and go put it in a new tire. Now, is that the only way? Absolutely not. But it goes back to labor and tools, right? Yeah, you're going to have to get your tire spoons out and reverse corkscrew, you know, if you wanted to save that tire. So to answer your question, yes, you can absolutely take it to a new tire. If, you know, you damage that tire or wore it out, absolutely. I always pick on Joe from the Iowa series. I think we finally replaced his after 3 or 4 years, and that was like 2 years ago. So, and that's exactly what he did. He said, hey, I got 2 new tires. Can we take these spines out of these old ones and put them in the new ones? Done, you know, and we did it for him. So, you know, we have options, and a lot of people think, okay, well, shipping this, shipping that. Well, if you're sponsored by GBC or Maxxis or, you know, whoever, Obor, you know, and they ship you your tires, right? Just redirect them to us, and then we can figure it out, whether we ship it to you or, hey, you're from Iowa, you're only 3 hours from us. I'll make a trip down on the weekend, and we'll make a, you know, trip out of it with the family, you know, pick them up, you know, like we have options, you know, if you don't want to do it, we can do it for you. It's not a problem. We just got to figure out a little bit of logistics, you know, and like I said, most people are getting them drop shipped from their manufacturer, their sponsors or whatever. Anyway, just redirect it here. We drop a spine in it and send it on its way, you know?
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
The spines live so long. So I know that foam degrades, and if it's similar to like a pool noodle, that's the best thing I could think of. It kind of degrades and just crumbles. Is that how a tire spine breaks down? Is that how?
Yes.
How would you know that a tire spine breaks down?
If you exceed that temperature, 230 degrees threshold, give or take a little bit, that's what it'll do. It'll just basically turn into confetti and drop into the bottom of your tire.
That's a good visual.
Okay. So
yeah.
If it's
it literally is
messed up. Okay, that's what I was curious about. I just didn't know.
At the same time, it's still going into inside your tire. So even if you do hit that threshold in the middle of a race or whatever, you're still not hitting the ground. It's all, you know, crumpled up into pieces in the bottom of your tire. So it's still better than nothing. But it takes a lot, especially on a sport quad. It takes a lot to get there. A 240 horsepower side by side from the factory nowadays. It's not hard to do that.
Yeah.
It really isn't, you know? So, you know, that's the other thing, you know, you talk a desert racer versus a woods XC racer, there's a dramatic difference there in temperatures and heat and friction, speed, rocks versus trees, so
we have rocks with trees sometimes.
yeah, exactly.
You mentioned
sorry.
Matt Horton there earlier. I think Matt's a good one to kind of test those on, isn't he? Going like your Vegas Dorinos and at the Heartland. I mean, we've seen what he put his machine through at the Heartland there a couple years ago. Yep. He was in every crook and cranny and tree and pond and everywhere.
We just did a set for Don Higby for the desert just a month or so ago. So nice. Don's got another. I think he just built a whole new quad or something this year. So
I've seen pictures of it. That was nice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned
I know Matt and Don and those guys. They're all the big desert guys out there.
Yeah. I know Joe Lutz was sure happy to get his when you did his. So
yep.
Yeah, he was tickled. So cool. So on your product, you went from, you already mentioned like the smallest ones, like say for I've seen mini quads have them, to go, you're in the Ultra 4s, your big buggies now, and you're, the King of Hammers. What are you learning anything new from like the testing and stuff that you're putting back into it, or how are you developing going from one to the other? Is it just a growing process or what?
Honestly, it's what we are learning is things are getting bigger and heavier and faster. I mean, we are doing a spine right now that most of our traditional spines have a cut in them, and that's what allows you to, as the end user, to install them yourself with that corkscrew method going down into your wheel. Well, when you get into higher weight, higher speed, side-by-sides and stuff like that and bigger, what happens is you, think of a dragster. You always see a dragster leaving the line and their tires suck up and get real tall. Mm-hmm. The same thing happens. The bigger tire you go, that same effect happens, especially when you get more and more speed. So what can happen is with that spine inside of it, that cut can open up and start causing a balance issue for really high speeds. So what we're doing at Ultra 4 and in these bigger tires is one solid ring. It doesn't have a cut. And we have about an 8-foot tall press that we put that spine, or that, think of it as a donut, right? We put this donut in it, and that hydraulically compresses it down and just drops it into the tire at the bottom of a funnel, basically. And what that does is that eliminates that possibility of that being able to open up. For quads and side-by-sides, for the most part, doing woods and XC, it's not a problem. But the requirements for like Ultra 4 and stuff like that, these guys are over 100 miles an hour, no problem. So in the new Maverick R that came out, it's somebody's gonna correct me, but it's like 240 horsepower straight on the showroom floor. So the more power, the more speed, and the more weight that we get into, more these challenges come up with vibration and precision. And all the spines for about the past 2 years, this is another thing that people don't know. They used to all be made by hand. They have not been made by hand for about 2 years now. They're all done on a big CNC. Weston's shaking his head. Everything's done by CNC because it's not hard at all by hand to get a circle out around. And that leads into a balance.
Very, very easy.
So we have seen tremendous, great feedback, even in the past 2 years, that even on side-by-sides that are getting up there in speeds with the turbos and everything else, like I don't have the vibration problems anymore. At some point you can because of that cut still, but that's the drawing line right now, right? End user installable, or I want to go fast, Ricky Bobby, like you can't have both, right? And the same thing goes back to all the other products on the market, right? So and that's where the kind of the military played in. They tested carbon fiber and hoop ring tires and all this, and they're like, go run over that curb. I'm in the middle of a city in a firefight. Go run over that curb. And they literally failed the test because it would shatter. So that the foam is durable and it's a dense foam, but it still allows all the performance of that tire. And that's what really sets us apart. And we can even control the softness or the firmness. And that's also going into what we're testing right now. We're working towards vehicles over 12,000 pounds with them now. So the Ultra 4 vehicles with the V8s in them right now, they're over 100 miles an hour with spines right now at 6,000 pounds. Wow. So we're getting into the requirements, even from the military, you know, all these up armored vehicles and everything else. It's just weight. I had a government phone call the other day that they wanted spines for a 12,000 pound vehicle with a max speed of 112 miles an hour. So we're already over 100 miles an hour now with these spines, you know, without the cut. But the weight now, it's just everything just keeps getting bigger, faster, and heavier, right? Just like the side-by-side. So that's the area we're going. You know, I wish I could say I was doing a lot more for sport quad guys, but that's pretty dialed in. So, you know, yeah. So.
And as a sport quad guy, I'm glad I don't have your headache.
So, I can see Weston already thinking when you're saying 12,000 pounds and 112 mile an hour. I seen him like figuring in his head that
I've got to get close shot.
So here's the other unique part too, right? Is that same phone call was for on highway as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
There's a whole other ball of worms involved, as you guys can imagine. Andy, you more than anybody from a liability perspective. If you have something like a tire spine in your tire, you're going down the interstate and something bad happens, what happens there from a liability perspective? And that's where majority of the products on the market, you can't touch a highway without DOT certification and liability and all kinds of insurance policies. And so that's another aspect that we're looking at to possibly invest towards DOT certification to be able to go on road. Again, we're already hitting 100 miles an hour, but once you touch a road, just think of what's a blacktop road. What is that temperature in the middle of summer? Mm-hmm. You know, and we talk about, you know, it's definitely different than sticking your hand in the grass versus on the blacktop, right? You know, so those are all factors that really people don't ever think about going into tires and stuff like that. And none of the products are on road, and there's a good reason for it, you know? So, I mean, that's where we're at right now, kind of testing and R&D and everything and what's going on behind the scenes. But a lot of interesting, high speed, heavy stuff right now is what's going on. So
that's awesome.
That sounds really cool, especially if for me being an ATV guy, outside of the spines and a sport quad, the thought of having tire spines be possible in, say, a trailer tire at highway speeds, that'd be cool. Because I know in Texas that we have a lot of racetracks that we go to that it's not it's a dirt parking lot. Mainly it's a pasture typically, and there might be mesquite thorns that are this tall, and it's like a nail. And I've lost trailer tires due to mesquite thorns. So that would be cool. And it wouldn't necessarily save the tire because it's still going to leak, but it would get me home without having to stop and change a tire. That would be nice.
You just made a very good point. And it goes back to wear and tear, heat, friction, and just overall life, especially when it comes to not just tire spine, but all the products, right? Mm-hmm. So if you take care of the product, it'll take care of you. And you just said something with that thorn. We're one of the few products that if you hit one of those thorns, plug your tire. Keep going. You're not going to hurt the foam. You're not going to hurt the insert. Some other products you're going to hurt. But that's the other thing. If you keep air over the top of it, it just keeps going. It's still there as your insurance policy. You're not wearing and tearing on it nearly even remotely as much if you were flat on it. But if you keep air with it and over the top of it, that's how a lot of these guys are getting the distance out of them is they'll fix their tire, they'll patch it, they'll plug it, whatever, and you're not going to hurt the spine, you know. And that's what we recommend to everybody. If you have a thorn from a race, it got you to the podium, cool. Go ahead, throw a tire plug in it, get air back over the top, keep going until you wear the tread off the tires, you know.
He's saying no more sidewall, having to replace them on the sidewalls. Rip out the whole sidewalls and got your spines, you're good to go.
I was trying to figure out how to put a picture in here. I had I think it was last year, an Indiana guy like ripped a whole flap out of his tire. You could see the whole ball of the tire. He still finished the race. So with the whole spine literally hanging out of it, So
That's awesome.
I wish I could.
That's awesome.
I was trying to figure out how to put that picture in here, but I couldn't figure it out. But
I think you already answered it. Chris was asking a question while you were doing that, but maybe you answered with DOT, but he was wanting to know if he could get any for his Prius.
Unfortunately, yes. Yes, if he keeps it off the road. So that's the official answer.
Okay.
I like that. Take him to the King of the Hammers with you with the Prius.
There you go.
It's probably already been done, honestly, because a lot of people fly in there and just rent cars. And I'm pretty sure Enterprise Rental Car and those places around there have a big no-no list during King of the Hammers, because if you ever get the opportunity to go out there and see what's going on out there, your mind would be blown, from Priuses trying to climb rocks to Frankenstein trucks. Like it's
Hey,
crazy.
I just thought about something. You can take care of me later for feeding you this thought, okay? So if you look at Progressive, you look at Geico, all these other insurance companies, they have all this stuff. What about a miniature Prius with like a fat head of Chris, talking about tire spines? I think that could go over really well for you.
That's a new spokesperson.
Hey, that's on my bucket list, Steve. I'll get out there eventually. We're looking 2026.
Well, it's funny because I started trying to say it at the beginning. They don't do quads out there, but they do bikes. Mm-hmm. I have not gotten to see it because it's like a week before we get there. Mm-hmm. But taking a dirt bike through the stuff, like, it is mind-blowing what those guys can make happen on two wheels, let alone four. So
motorized goats is what that is.
Yes, literally.
Well, hey, we're about done here. I want to give you guys a second to tell us, I want to know, where they can go, where you guys recommend the easiest way to get a hold of you and stuff. But while you're thinking of that on what you want to say, I really quick want to say another protection that our series is all about is running the right oil. And our Tie Lube, we have Chad Bottleworth that's part of our series and sponsoring some riders and stuff, taking care of our crew and everything. And we switched all of our machines over to it, all utilities, everything that we work with the crew and everything on. And we can't thank them enough either. The oil is amazing. He's got so many other products that's really just kind of protecting us out there as we work, and not only us, but the racers with the Tie Lube race fuel and stuff. And everybody can still go to Chad and apply for a sponsorship this year. He's still taking things that are resumes until January 10th, so Friday the 10th. So keep an eye out for that. Even if you guys aren't even in Texas or Arkansas or Missouri, if you guys don't have anybody, I highly recommend looking up Tie Lube, and I can always get you his number. But it's a huge thing with the dirt bikes, and it's really just kind of started working its way over to the ATVs, side-by-sides, and everything. So I've switched everything of mine over to it and been very happy. Actually, I just changed one oil last night. Actually, I'm waiting for oil, Chad, but I dumped it out of a little air-cooled 350 Rancher, and the oil looked brand new after. I didn't change it one time except for early last year. So that's a big protection too. So I just want to drop that in there when we're talking about the protection stuff. But Weston, how I know you got a busy life right now with the kids and everything. And before, I know you've told me that emailing sometimes is the best way, but I got a guy that's looking to get your products. How do you recommend him coming to you?
So if he already knows what he needs and he doesn't have to ask any questions, to just go straight to the website and order. That is the easiest way to order. If he has questions, my phone number is on the website. If you need questions right away, you can call me. If I don't answer, you can leave me a voicemail or a text. But the phone is really the best way to get a hold of me. I haven't been the best at answering it over holidays, because having 2 holidays back to back on Wednesday is not cool. But
and the baby in between, right? Or right before?
I don't think I've slept since before Christmas. So, but the phone's best way to get a hold of me if you have questions. The phone number on the website's a cell number, so please keep that in mind when people call. Like, I don't want to answer your phone call at 2:00 in the morning. I'm typically trying to sleep if a newborn's not screaming in my ear. So but I'm typically up and bumping and in the shop around 9:00 in the morning, and I'm usually in the shop till about 7-8 o'clock in the evening. So I'm usually there most of the days. Saturdays are kind of hit and miss this time of year because kids. But phone call is the best way to get a hold of me. Best way to order is through the website. If you're international, you can get a hold of me, call or text, and I have to hand build the international orders because my website's not set up for international shipping. I'm sure Steve has all the fun with international stuff too. It's not fun. And Canada being on strike right before Christmas has really screwed Canada over right now. So I'm still got to work through that. But that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Cool. Steve, how about how do we get tire spines?
So sure, yeah, I kind of just like Western. Tire-spine.com is the best. You can go on there and find even under our fitment tab, it has the common weights for just a good majority of common sizes of spines. Everybody's always shocked at how much they don't weigh. Very big misconception on the weight. But tire-spine.com. Our phone number's on there. It literally comes to my cell phone. So if you think you have my cell phone number and it's coming to the same place anyway. So
yep.
Then if you have any questions, you can call us. You can text the number. I mean, you can message us on Facebook, Instagram. Everything is on our website, including links to our social media, our YouTube channel with all the install videos. But it all comes out of tire-spine.com. So
I'm trying to keep up with you guys. I'm trying to get your address, your .com scrolling across the bottom where people can see that too as we're talking. I'm not the fastest, but I'm trying to keep up there. So
I see it. You did good.
Thank you. So yeah, really quick too. I also want to drop in that our banquet for the 2024 season's coming up. The Iowa ATV Hare Scramble Series. It's Saturday, February 1st down at Honey Creek in Moravia. Banquet for Kids Awards will start at 3 p.m., dinner at 4 p.m., adult awards following. So it's a really neat place. I love Iowa, don't get me wrong, but this place, you wouldn't even know you're in Iowa when you see it. I mean, especially this time of year when you get snow, it's absolutely beautiful. I remember Sean Hess was up here for one of our AXCC banquets. I remember all of us kids are down there playing in the snow and stuff and just couldn't believe it how much snow we had. And this is like the winter wonderland. So it's a pretty cool place. But yeah, I just want to let everybody know that we need to start getting their stuff in or get the rooms reserved. We're getting down to our deadline here in just a couple weeks. So, but definitely want to thank you guys. I hope people take notice. We don't get a ton of people watching the day of, but it's amazing in the next, 3 to 4 days, how many people come back and watch this thing and see it. And I always get questions asked about it. I try to spread it, on what's going to happen the week before. But I tell everybody, if you don't learn at least one thing on these, you're not listening. There's so many opportunities that you guys have, and I'm sure Weston at the races down there, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I'll bet you bring product to the races if you need to for somebody. Steve up here has been really good about bringing product if we know that that you're going to be at a race and stuff. And you let us know about bringing it to the certain races, the Heartland or some of our races and stuff. So really appreciate you guys coming on. I know our next week we're going to be talking about suspension, which you already mentioned a little bit about that, Weston, and that's another big deal. So we're trying to take this little mini series and run with it, kind of cover every single aspect of it, but we sure appreciate you guys coming on. Crystal, I'm sorry Chris waited till the last second to get a hold of you, but we do appreciate you coming on to help. Sometimes working with Chris isn't the easiest, but we try to put up with it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, he kind of flakes every once in a while, so it's okay. I don't mind at all. He's okay to sit this one out. I appreciate you guys having me on with you guys.
Well, I just did see a message saying Chris is the best. Oh, wait, that came from Chris. Never mind. No, you did really good. We appreciate it, man. Probably the most exciting co-host we've had, Crystal. You're not being compared to a lot, but
Just
But-
better than Chris. The bar's already low. We just
Bingo.
one
Yep.
above, right?
Yeah. And we just try to be honest on here. We don't try to, pick on anybody or nothing, but it's just the truth, So we appreciate it. But thank you guys. Any last thing you guys want to say on your products?
Go ahead, Weston.
I'll be at Heartland. That's the plan this year. I'm planning on bringing 3 warriors to go run Heartland with. And so if anybody needs anything at Heartland or wants to see or have anything explained about how it works or how fitment is or anything like that, y'all can find me then. That's otherwise I'll be back in the shop on Monday.
Maybe ask Crystal. Oh, you mean I thought you meant Monday after Heartland.
No. I'm probably still going to be driving home from Heartland on Monday. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're gonna be napping or relax. You're not gonna be doing a whole lot on Monday. Actually, the whole week. Let's just do that. I don't think I moved for an entire week after I did that Ironman class. I was pretty rough shape.
I am not going to do Ironman. No, we're going to do a 3-man team. I am not doing Ironman.
That's how I would do it. If you get blisters, I don't know how I did this, but I did the entire 10-hour race. I'm going to just throw this in there because we're talking about production. I did the entire 10-hour race, and I usually always tape my hands. Well, I taped my hands really good. I didn't have one blister. After that entire race, I didn't have one blister. I mean, might have had blisters elsewhere, but they were not on my hands.
But was that the year that we had the super smooth track, though?
Yes. It was nice. It was like cool. It was like 50s or 60s, and it was at your It was the one that I can't remember. Was it
Carlisle?
Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't the one with the motocross. It was one of the. I think it was the original track.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, half-mile from my house.
Yeah. It was a little smooth. Don't ask me that. And I think it was like 2010. I raced it. We did a kid team, but no blisters. That says a lot for these hands.
Yeah. So, anything from you, Chad or Steve?
I just want to say thank you to everybody that reaches out, and even if you're just unsure and just have a question, I just like I said, the number's on the website. You can Google Tire Spine; it'll take you right to all our information. And don't hesitate to ask questions, and we can always refer you to people that have got them or whatever. I just want to say thanks for everything you guys do too, Andy. And I got a phone call the other day from an Iowa guy. So I mean, I enjoy talking to people. I'm a talker, so I mean, if you have any questions or any concerns, or can we do this, can we do that, and also don't think we're siloed into ATVs and side-by-sides and stuff too. Like we, robots, lawnmower. I put them in my lawnmower this spring. I mean, anything you can think of, if it's got a tire on it, we can figure it out. Just stay off the road, please.
So you're saying Prius is a chance?
As long as he stays off-road.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Way to slide that in, Steve.
Awesome. Well, you know what? We've done a pretty good job. It's amazing. Chris obviously was feeling under the weather and wasn't here, but we almost kept this to almost exactly an hour and a half, which really says what I've been trying to say is Chris is a talker, and he stretches it out a little bit long each time. So you guys, I appreciate you guys taking the time. Sorry we had to move it from Wednesday to Friday, and then Chris still couldn't be here. So hey, it is what it is. But thank you guys, Crystal, for last second deal and you guys changing your plans around and stuff. I know you were busy tonight, Steve, and stuff came up, take care of customers and everything. So Weston's got the little ones at home right now and stuff. So we appreciate everything. More importantly, we appreciate everything you guys do for our sport. Our sport wouldn't be what it is today without you guys. And even though it may sometimes look like XCs may be struggling a little bit here or there, I mean, I think you guys are part of the team that's keeping it alive and going in the right direction, I believe. So appreciate it very much to you guys, and look forward to seeing you both here in the near future.
Sounds good. I appreciate you letting me be on the show.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Crystal.